This is why we've never done one of these live, by the way.
And now, Mr. Serling.
This old-fashioned railroad car is about as extinct as the dinosaur. But next week it takes us to a little village that is not only a place, but a state of mind. It's the transportation to what we think is one of the most unique stories we've ever presented. Next week, Mr. James Daly stars in A Stop at Willoughby. We hope you stop with him. Thank you, and good night.
Man, I love just comforting Serling. He's there on a sofa and he's turning around and going, come and join me. We're going to go for a ride. Yes, so we are in fact doing this live. I think
First of all, he's on a train, not a sofa, so I'm not sure which trailer you were watching.
On a train? They looked very comfy.
Okay.
Right.
Actually, him on a train, the first thing I thought was, like, is it going to derail and go over a cliff and explode into flames or something? No, but it's not. I don't think it's quite that dramatic.
Twilight Zone.
Look at the budget.
That's not the budget. Yeah. How are we feeling about Serling's...
We can't burn union actors. They cost too much.
How are we feeling about Serling's intro here? Who's watched this one before? I have not.
I have not.
I have.
You too. So, Dan, how are you feeling on this episode? How do you feel about...
Well, I recognize the name James Daly instantly as some Star Trek alum here. So
what was he?
It was Requiem for Methuselah. He was Flint, right? So
wow.
Pretty interesting. Yeah. But not only that, it just sounds like Serling is genuinely excited about this episode. Like, I've never seen him so excited to present an episode. Usually he likes to set the mood, but he can't contain himself here. This is going to be an all-timer. I think that I'm gonna pre-rate it at 9.
You're gonna pre-rate 9. Wow.
Yep.
Okay. I am also kind of... I always love when he puts the gimmick of the show in his intro. Like, usually he appears on the screen, he's got a cigarette in one hand, he's like, there's a tale about some strange people who do strange stuff. He's on the train, he's doing the over-the-shoulder look, he's turning around, he's giving us a bit of flair, a bit of dramaticism. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm feeling a 7.5, 8-ish. I'm feeling after Nothing in the Dark. My expectations are tempered ever so slightly, even though you guys loved it. So I'm going to go 7.5. Gentlemen who have seen it, I'm intrigued to see what you go with.
Shy.
Well, I'll tell you. I honestly, before I watched it, I would have rated this like maybe a 6 or a 7. Like it just a train. Unless you're Akira Kurosawa, like a thing on a train car does not really interest me. Like for a Twilight Zone episode, but having watched it, I'll give you my post. Can I give, since I probably am not going to be here for the review? Should I give you my post review score right now?
I'll put it in.
We'll splice it in later.
Yeah. It's an 8. It goes up to an 8. It's a very solid.
Set in post.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like we're ready to go watch the episode. Okay, everyone on stream, if you're watching. Oh, and you, Otto. What do you rate that? Sorry.
All right, in lieu of a pre-rating, because I've watched this so many times, I'm just going to say keep an eye out, or an ear out. I don't think we'll cover this after we watch it, but it's interesting to me. When he introduces the character, this is Gart Williams, age 38. He gives this little monologue about our main character, and it's about the wordiest prose you've ever heard, and coming from Serling, that's really saying something. He packs so much loquaciousness into the introduction for this character, and it kind of tickles me. So keep an ear out for that.
What does loquacious mean? I've heard that a couple of times, but I don't actually know the definition.
He was the leader of the Borg for 2 episodes, and then
nice.
Loquacious of Borg. Okay.
All right. Let's watch.
This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone.
Yes, welcome back to the Holodeck. We are, in fact, talking about A Stop at Willoughby. Gentlemen, if you could stop at any place on your fictional road to nowhere, where would you get off?
I would stop at Trek Time on YouTube, available every Wednesday and Friday that idles at home.
Well, yeah, when we can be bothered. No, we've just finished watching A Stop at Willoughby, the Twilight Zone, Season 1, Episode 30.
Season 1.
My first question, as always, Otto, why are we watching this episode? Why have you picked this particular episode for us to watch?
So there are a lot of reasons, and I could monologue them. But long story short, I paired it with Nothing in the Dark. We got to look at how Wanda's character, terrified of death, tried to forestall it at every opportunity. In this case, for Mr. Gart Williams, age 38, cannonaded day after day, as Serling said, it was a sweet release for him from a life that he didn't want anymore.
It was interesting. Like, this was... I know I said last time, I was like, oh, always looking for the twist. And you said, like, oh, yeah, don't do that with the Twilight Zone. Just enjoy the moment. So I kind of took that on board, and I was there for the ride, and my head was still in the twist moment. I was still there. I was thinking, like, what part of this are we going to go to the Twilight Zone for? And I think with the resolution, I was just like, okay, yeah, that's kind of where I was thinking. And my when we get to my final 5 minutes, I've got an idea on that already, but... What do you hear from you, Dan? Dan, how did you feel? How did you vibe with this episode?
This episode cast an absolute spell on me. You know, we were reflecting before we got onto our debrief here that we were completely silent for 15, 20 minutes here. This episode has a remarkable way of drawing you in. So credit to the direction. Also, just, you know, the fact that they I think Serling probably pushed for a little extra budget on this for the extra scenery. We got a stuntman up on a penny farthing. There was, you know, they
made use of that. He was back and forwards. He did not get off that for like a good solid 4 hours.
Yeah, even the kids had speaking parts. There were a lot of speaking actors in this episode. It's just an expensive episode for the 60s.
Literally Tom Sawyer holding their sticks as they're walking around in their sort of half shorts.
But you know, it drew me in from the start, and also I just want to point out the timeless quality of this episode. You know, we while we don't incorporate the Geritol ads into the actual TV shows anymore, you know, it's still we have Don Draper, and we've got, you know, ad executives to this day, and everybody feels the pressure of being in those meetings, and you know, and it's such a relatable episode, and it's amazing 65 years later that it just still hits the way it does.
There was a scene near sort of in the last third that, you know, he was there and he was at his desk, he had his head in his hand, and he had the receiver of the phone on his desk, and my brain was just like, well, hang on, no, they didn't have speakerphone on your mobile in those days. And obviously he's just listening through the speaker because the boss is that loud, he can hear him
push all the way, all the time, right on down the line.
But I have definitely had, you know, I've been there, I've seen several people who have had speakerphone like on their mobiles on the desk, and just with their head in their hands just going, oh, this shit right now. And I was just like, we can still sympathize with that in this day and age. It's either it's a relatable thing and also a bad thing. We haven't moved on. Sorry, carry on.
So, Dan, you mentioned the director. In this case, Robert Parrish, who directed several scenes from Casino Royale, which I was told by Stars ahead of time he directed the good scenes. So that might be why it worked here. Yeah, Peter Sellers and I forget the other actor, but he directed those scenes.
Obviously,
also written by Rod.
Sorry, go on.
No, yeah, the old school one. Written by Rod Serling, and he had intended for this to be the pilot episode of the series. Oh, wow. But the powers that be decided it was too dark, and it got pushed to later in the season. And I was remarking on the watch along, who came up with these names for the train stops? Well, they were actual stops. Rod Serling commuted by train to New York City for season 1 of this, and so he pulled. I mean, this is a lot. We've gotten the ad executive storyline before in Walking Distance, and it comes back here. So this was undoubtedly. Poured himself and his own experiences into this.
This absolutely felt like someone that is working their job was like, you know what, I'm going to write this into a script. This is Serling that has worked at like several previous jobs. And imagine in that time, advertising industry is just getting started, and there's a lot of uncertainty, especially people's like, well, let's just push. Let's do this, let's do that. You got to do this quick, and we've got to sit in a meeting, and everyone's got to come on ideas, but you especially got to come on ideas and get it done, or we're not leaving this room, when there was absolutely no job standards and no, lunch break? What's a lunch break? You don't have a lunch break. We have a making money
liquid
break.
lunch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, this felt like it was coming from a very personal place from Rod Serling, and it's very still relatable.
Is this going to be the first time we all have the same bread? Push. Oh, the push.
Oh, okay. Now you said that, I now have to think of another bread. But I'd like to talk about the wife a little bit in this. It was was this an arranged marriage? Because she was very hard on him. There was at one point during their conversation when she sat down to listen to him, I thought, actually, maybe she's not so bad. She's a bit hard on him, but maybe that's just to push him to find the better qualities. And then immediately after listening to him, she was just like, well, you're a piece of shit, aren't you? I'm going to bed. And I was like, oh, okay.
She took the seat like a psychiatrist would take the seat, and he was just like a little kid just squatting down on his steps, the mid house steps, whatever the heck those were. But yeah, she was still in a position of power. And I'll tell you another really remarkable thing is one of my kids is in a private school, and that wife is pitch perfect, exactly the same types of wives you will see today as you did 65 years ago. So they hold all the power in the relationship. And you mentioned arranged marriages very, very frequently, not so much so as we would think in terms of a concrete arrangement, but these marriages between high class, high powered families are absolutely a thing. So yeah, wow. Good shout out there.
Yeah, I mean, they mentioned her appetite. That does track with the upwardly mobile wives who at that time relied on husbands for income. The first few times I watched it, I didn't like her just because I don't particularly like that archetype. And Serling himself has admitted he doesn't write women well. There are a lot of episodes. I mean, we watched A Time Enough at Last, where Burgess Meredith's wife Helen destroys his yes. poems for no reason. Why, Helen? Why do you do these things? Because I'm married to a fool, she says. She's just the worst of the worst. And while Garth's wife doesn't quite approach that, I mean, it is regrettably a fairly true to life rendering of a woman who has an appetite in this case, or a housewife that has an appetite. So that bothers me less and less as it goes on, but. That scene is interesting because contrast it with when he's in the boardroom with his boss, and we get the extreme zoom on his boss's push. And when Gart has also started bothering him, I can zoom in on his face and he's uncomfortable. But when he's talking about Willoughby to his wife, the camera pulls back and it pans very slowly. They play the music in the background. And so they do a good job of accentuating, highlighting what a vacation spot this could be for him.
I love his house, though. His house is amazing. He's got 2 full walls full of a library, a fireplace running. He's got a nice little step he can sit on. That's his favourite place to sit, you can tell. He doesn't want to sit in any of the chairs. He's quite happy just perching on the little step there. And I can relate. There's places in my house, I've got a nice sofa, I've got nice chairs, and there's occasionally it's I'm just going to perch on the step in front of the dishwasher. And it's just because I feel comfortable here. I can relate. It was
like a poor layout to me, but to each their own. So,
I mean, it does highlight he has all the material things he could ever want. Hasn't helped him so far.
No.
Right.
And before we get too far away from the wife, I will say on a recent rewatch, I did find it hilarious. Well, funny, let's say. We leave a boardroom of 9 men and go into the room with all of the female secretaries, and that dichotomy from room to room I found interesting sign of the times.
A steno pool, yep. Mm-hmm. Bygone thing.
A steno pool, yeah. Okay, let's go on to our bread. Okay, so if you're not familiar with bread, it's the moment in the episode that you found the most memorable in the same way that Cisco just going, bread! It just sticks out the most. Dan, what was your bread?
Yep. So the music was interesting, and I thought maybe they were kind of cheaping out a little bit. It's public domain music, and so it's. I think we
So
got
we could've
Camptown
played it.
Races and Oh Susanna, but there is one moment when he finally makes the decision to step off the train, and he's walking under the sign for Willoughby, and that's when we hear "Beautiful Dreamer," and it's just so appropriate. And so, perfect little moment. That's my bread.
Good catch. Idol. What's your bread?
Yeah, I think it's the moment when he hits the mirror, when he's like freaking out. Everyone's getting to me. Here's the boss in his head. Everyone, the three, the two phones are getting him. His secretary is going blah 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 with this, and he walks into the bathroom and he smashes the mirror. And I've got to say kudos to the VFX team, because obviously smashed it live, and there was still enough in the reflection to be able to pick out the details. And again, Twilight Zone and mirror work, just perfect. Like, it was just a great shot of just him smashing the mirror and still having the reflection there and using it as the focal point of the scene. It was just really good, and that really impacted me. And that's going to come on a little bit later on something I'm going to say when we come on to a section later. But also, what was your bread of the episode?
Well, if you have something you want to link it to, go ahead. Because
no.
My bread is going to be buried in another thing too. Okay.
No. I've already got my final 5 minutes sorted, so this will
Okay,
come.
I
So
got
go
it.
for your bread.
Well, before we get to my bread, I want to ask you guys. So there are two big possibilities, and maybe more. Does Gart knowingly commit suicide with Willoughby as a stand-in for the afterlife, or has he become so delusional, so disillusioned that he really thinks he's chasing a fantasy and it's an accident?
I think it's a combination, isn't it? It's a psychosis. Like, he is so frustrated, his brain is just broken. He's got to the point where, like, actually he does believe that his dream of Willoughby and the station master saying, "It's 1888. Come and meet Mark Twain. And there's this guy called Data here as well. He's making a time machine." I was going to get Times Arrow in there somewhere, sorry. Yeah, I think it's a psychosis. And at a certain point, he just literally snaps. And he goes, "Cool, I'm getting off the station. I'm walking off the train." Boom. I think that's my opinion.
Yeah, well, he dropped a hint earlier on when he first goes out into the steno pool, and he mentions, "Get me a razor and a map of the human body showing all the major arteries."
I forgot about that.
So people, you could say it's a joke or a throwaway line. I guess maybe it's the way high pressure bros talk, but not this guy. This guy was really seriously contemplating it, and I think that it goes unfilmed and unsaid, but I think he woke up and realized that he was on his way back to an empty home, and he took the step, of his own free will.
Yeah, I think it is suicide, and it's for three reasons. One, you mentioned that joke, that gallows humor. I have made and been around people who make those kind of jokes because it's a way to cope. Another little detail. The first time he sees Willoughby, he exits the car he's in, holding his velour, his briefcase, and he glances out toward Willoughby, and then he walks into the next car. The second time he's at Willoughby, he goes to exit the car, stops, goes back, he forgot his briefcase this time. He goes out in between the cars, and he looks down at Willoughby, and this time he takes 2 steps down. He's ready to get off. Then he stops, he turns back almost in fear, starts calling for the conductor. The third time, doesn't touch his briefcase, walks out to the car, takes the jump. Approximately half of people who commit suicide make an unsuccessful attempt previous to ending their life. We see him 3 or 4 times clutching at the ulcers in his stomach. Is that his lack of intestinal fortitude, so to speak, or is it a previous attempt that maybe went wrong? Those thoughts roll around in my mind. The third little hint, he calls his wife. "Janie, I can't take it. Not another minute, not another day. Please, I need you to be there for me." And she's not. Is that kind of his suicide note to her? Long story short, I've been in a similar situation where if I would have waited 1 more minute, I would have lost it. I had to call someone. And even though it wasn't someone I necessarily wanted to talk to, kind of like maybe his wife, he makes the call. And so I think all those little hints, he knew what he wanted to do. And Willoughby is the rationalization of his mind that this will be finally a better way out. So that's how I read the whole thing. And I am reading a lot into it for my own personal stuff. But like we say, this is coming from a personal place with Rod Serling squeezing him in a very high-powered job. So
this whole episode, like I'm gonna speak. You've put my rating up like a lot more after saying that, and I'm like, holy shit! Actually, yeah, you're right. Rod Serling, and again, it's not just this episode. They put Rod Serling in an absolutely amazing light, because being able to see those little things like wasn't a thing back then, but is one. I think it's one of those things that everyone knew, but no one was documenting, or no one was officially saying, and it was a case of like, yeah, we know what people are going through. That's what they're doing.
Sorry, I said all that to say my bread from now on will be that second stop at Willoughby, where he takes 2 steps down and he's so close, and then he turns around, and he can't quite bring himself to do it. And that was, I don't know if that's intentional or not, but that one is really going to live with me.
Damn straight. All right, let's do.
Well, if that's the best they could do, this should last about 5 minutes.
5 minutes. We will retrace our steps and figure out what's going on.
You've got 5 minutes. Do it.
Okay, gentlemen, how would you redo the last 5 minutes of this episode? Otto, you have actually ruined my last 5 minutes by your actually astute observations. But no, it's fine. I'm still going to run with it. So I'm going to say that and as like I said in my bread, like it stuck out with me with the way he smashed the mirror. And in my head, when I was looking for it, I thought, oh, he smashed the mirror. He's had a heart attack. He's dead. At that point, I thought. And I was looking out for everything after was just him. I thought, all right, he's going to go out, he's going to get on the train, then he's going to be in Willoughby. And that's his afterlife. He's there. At that point, like, he's smashed the mirror, he's given up, he's got, or not given up, sorry, he's smashed the mirror, he's moved on, he's gone on. And from that point, I thought, okay, so then he moves on, he goes in the afterlife, he goes to his Willoughby, he's happy, he's out of the stress. So that was going to be my last 5 minutes, but it turned out to be a little bit different. Otto, what's your last 5 minutes if you want to change anything about this episode?
Yeah, I hope I'm not stealing yours, Dan. This is usually why I go last. As much as I like exactly how everything panned out, I'm going to try to go an uplifting route. He does get off at Willoughby, and he's talking to Tom Sawyer, and he's talking to the penny farthing man. And his wife walks up to him, and she's just beaming, big smile on her face. She's so happy Gart finally joined her. Honey, let's go watch a movie or something. He walks a little further. There's his boss. Hey, Gart, I hope I'll see you at the picnic. Come over to my house kind of thing. Suddenly, he's a great boss, and he's happy to see him. And he was in the bad place before, and now he's finally stepped into the good place. I think that might be a nice way to end things.
Yeah, when you said uplifting, I thought you were going to take mine for a brief second, but no, mine's completely different. So you mentioned the poor writing of women. I would like to think that Joni had a fragment of goodness to her, because Gart was a good man, and I don't think that he could have suffered being with a hostile woman for as long as he did. So I think that upon his wife hanging up on her, she had a change of heart, and she found her way to a bus stop and wakes him up before his dream takes him too far. And so he wakes up out of his dream of Willoughby to see his wife next to him and saying, just let's get away someplace. I think we could use a break. And that's it. Just a happier ending, so that we don't double down on death for 2 episodes in a row. So.
It's the Twilight Zone. If it's not death somewhere, it's somewhere.
Yeah, that's not very Twilight Zone. That's more just melodrama. So
it's not very Twilight Zone.
It wouldn't make a good episode of Twilight Zone, but it would make me feel a lot better. So
it turns out their son was named Willoughby all along, and they didn't realize it.
Didn't see any kids, did we? Maybe that's part of it. Didn't see kids. He's not. Well, there's a lot of layers, a lot of hidden layers in this episode, I feel. Okay, let's do.
I can show you my rating code.
Schiller rating 3.5. Associational rating norm -3.
That's much too low a rating.
I'm just not accustomed to seeing an unsatisfactory rating on a member of my crew.
We need to find some Twilight Zone references for this, because going to Star Trek is so jarring for me right now. Yes.
Are we naming
code. Sorry.
Are we renaming the channel Trek Zone or something? Half and half.
Oh, that's so much better. Why did you not suggest that 4 years ago? Okay. Do you have a rating code for us, gentlemen? Either of you?
Dan is always
Okay.
prepared with a few.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be how many maps of the human anatomy showing all the major arteries out of 10.
Showing all the maps of the human anatomy, showing all the major arteries. There we go. How do you spell arteries? Arteries. There we go. Major. Showing all the major. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. Dan, start us off. What were you you rating this?
This is a clear 10. There's just no way around it. Everything about this episode drew me in and dumbstruck me. And I've said it before about Serling's work, but he has just, and he couldn't have known at the time, or maybe he did because he's an excellent writer, but just he wanted to keep these episodes timeless and so they could be enjoyed. And it's not just us who enjoy them. We're not digging this stuff up out of some dusty closet somewhere. Like this is stuff that's played in New Year's Eve marathons, and it's still in syndication and on Pluto TV for anybody that wants to watch the episodes for free. And this is endlessly entertaining and always relevant. And this episode, even though it takes place on an antiquated mode of transportation, and the gender roles are from a bygone era, the feels still hit the same. 10 maps of the human anatomy showing all the major arteries out of 10.
Fantastic. I think with this episode, it's transcendent, isn't it? Because we're watching this in the year 2025, okay, and we're seeing all the same things. We're seeing all the same breaking points. We're seeing, people being pushed to suicide, people being pushed to stress levels, people being in unhappy marriages, or in sort of situations that they've set themselves up for, or they've gone like, oh yeah, this would be a good idea at the time, and not thinking about it and going like, okay, now I'm in, where is my perfect wife? Where is my perfect house? As wonderfully said by XTC, the famous song whose name escapes me, but you know the one I mean. And Rod Serling pulling from that place of personal experience, of probably having contemplated suicide, of being so overworked, of having been probably worked in an advertising studio, in a TV studio, so much pressures that you're not used to when, remind me, Otto, Serling was a war veteran, wasn't he? He was,
yeah.
Yeah, so, coming from a stressful but simple place. You knew your role in the war. You don't know it in the modern world. It's a lot more complicated. And like I say, it transcends time because these stresses and these situations are still relevant to this day. And especially like after you said about suicide, Otto, and that part of it, which I didn't clock because I've not been in that situation, but actually, holy shit, men weren't talking about it in that time. It's still hard to talk for men in this time to talk about suicide or talk about your stress with anyone that will show a degree of sympathy. It's a hard thing. And yeah, I'm going to absolutely give this 10 maps of the human anatomy showing all the major arteries out of 10 because it's so impactful. And it doesn't feel like at the time, it just feels like, oh, he's having this wonderful dream to this wonderful place. Wouldn't it be better if I was there? And it's a little bit of escapism, a little bit of fantasy, and okay, back to the real world. But after you see him off the train and you kind of go like, yeah, sometimes things are too much, and mental health. Rod Serling is there in the 60s shouting out, mental health's fucking important, guys, in the best way he can.
Yeah.
And that's a lot. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for me, no doubt.
Yeah, we're almost 70 years on, and it's, sorry, I might get a little heavy here. Bodily autonomy is something to be championed more and more recently. And the women's right to choose. And even though, it's still contested, you're allowed to champion that freely out in the open. Suicide, another form of bodily autonomy, I feel like you're not. How many times have you heard what a shame that they chose that. You can't even talk about it.
It's criminalized.
Why not? Why are you going to pay their bills? Are you going to make their doctor's visits? Are you going to raise their family? You know, it should be, in my opinion, the person's choice. And for Serling to highlight that decades and decades ago, I think is impressive. My rating is obviously a 10. I love this episode. When we did the review the episode Time Enough at Last, and we talked about how much we didn't like the wife, the one thing I really didn't love about that episode was Henry Bemis's characterization. He was kind of adult. He was kind of well-meaning, but also terrible at his job. He felt bad for him because of his wife, but he also ignored her. And so he kind of straddled the fence. But in this case, Garth Williams, I think, is a fantastically written character. He doesn't put up with his boss's BS. The thing that struck me is he's a man with obvious, at this point, anger issues. Why don't you, fat boy, why don't you shut your mouth? He physically breaks a mirror. So he's obviously acting out in anger, but never at his wife. Even though she rides him and chides him, he pleads with her, please, hear me out. Be there for me. He doesn't raise his voice to her not once. He doesn't snap at her. So you can tell, he's still a good person, and the people that he cares about, he wants to be good too. And so he's also not a complete peanut head like Henry Bemis, who is charming in his own way. Because of the incomparable Burgess Meredith. So I love that part of the episode that he's written so well, and obviously we've talked about all the other issues. So it's a 10-10-10 right on down the line.
Very good.
It was a really good episode. It's really transcendent. I think this is what's really impressing me about the Twilight Zone, because before we started the series, and I watched a few scanned episodes of the 1984 series, and a few bits here and there. Never any of the black and white stuff. And I was just like, oh, it's just a kooky show. It's Futurama. Oh, it's the scary door. It's the guy whose eyes fall out. You're like, oh, it's just like, oh, twists on twists. I've never expected to be this real. And I feel like this is the most real of the Twilight Zone. And it is the things we like about Star Trek, as well as when it's a mirror for humanity. And, the reason as well I like Terry Pratchett's Discworld, as well as the same thing as a mirror for our own complicated social situations and things like that. This just amplifies that to 100%. And we have rated this, if it wasn't for Shy's 8, this would be a 10 out of 10. Can we strike that off?
So I did say I'd shout out what he wrote in chat, that his big quibble was that he wishes they'd spent more time at Willoughby and exploring that world. So
wow.
Although I got to say it was fairly tight, because that 1, 2, 3 stop at Willoughby, right, I thought really set up the escalation, and then we got obviously all the pressures from work and home. So I'm not sure they could have squeezed that much more in.
No, that was good. The only other episodes we rated ahead of this were, like we mentioned, Time Enough at Last and The Obsolete Man, who we rated 9.6, 12 angry kangaroo caught zombies out of 10.
Oh, such a good episode.
That was very, very good.
I have to rewatch that.
But no, it's 9.5. This is a stunning episode. This is one.
It's the number one non-Burgess Meredith episode, which is
has
a big distinction on its own.
Take for that. Okay, we'll be back soon with some more Twilight Zone, some more Trek, and all your wonderful favourites. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate this has been a bit of a heavy episode, but if you are ever struggling with anything like that, go and talk to someone. Talk to us. We've been there. Talk to anyone.
Make the call.
Make the call.
The Twilight Zone.